Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you yet again another ThunderCats episode review right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly. As always, here to bring you the latest in this week's ThunderCat episode review. Now, this week's episode 4, entitled Song of the Petalars. Now, this week's episode, once again, is another filler episode. When I say a filler episode, I mean it's an episode that is a side story. However, once again, like last week's episode, it ties in at the end with the overarching storyline. So, but let's get into it. Okay, in this week's episode, what happens is Lion-O and crew actually flee from an encounter with the lizards, and that leads them to this sacred wood, if you will, this sacred forest. It's almost as if it's a gigantic tree, but it's hollow in the middle, and it's this type of the best way I can describe it is it is like a forest oasis, like a giant tree made up of a bunch of smaller trees, and they encounter this race of creatures called the Petalars. What the Petalars are, they are a race of flower creatures, pretty much. They're flowers. But soon, the ThunderCats discover that the Petalars do not live long. Their lifespan is actually about the course of a day. And the one in particular, the character of Emmerich, who was a little kid when he first met Lion-O and gang, and by the end of the episode, we see him as an old man. Throughout the episode, Emmerich is aging, and we see these different versions of him. But once again, like last week's episode, this week's episode had a life lesson to offer. And this week's life lesson was the lesson of life is about the journey and not the destination. One of the characters actually says, life is a fragile gift. And it's one that should not be taken for granted because it is the greatest gift you can ever receive. And that was pretty much the theme of the episode, because we saw that the Petalars, their story is that they were once the denizens of this place called the Garden, which is exactly how it sounds. It's a garden world, a garden homeland, if you will. And, you know, it's comprised of a bunch of other flower type creatures. And one day they were blown out of the garden, and they landed in I forget the name of the place, but pretty much where this episode takes place, they landed within this place. And the thing was, the Petalars, as they've been growing up, they've been hearing stories and tales of this thing called the Cliff of Wind. And what would happen was, should the Petalars ever find the Cliff of Wind, the wind would carry them from the cliff back to the garden. And it's kind of like a fable that, you know, they have taken to heart, and that they've really been hoping for, which is what this episode's other theme is the theme of hope. Because Emmerich teaches Lion-O about hope. When it gets to the point when Lion-O actually questions whether or not the cliff even exists, Emmerich says, well, maybe our forefathers made it up to give us hope, because hope is a powerful thing. It's something that, you know, it's so endearing, and it's something that honestly can lift people up. So at the end of the episode, we did see that apparently the Cliff Wind did exist, and that the Petalars did manage to, well, we don't know if they made it back to the garden, but the cliff did what they heard it would do. And so it carried them away. But this whole little episode, it inspired Lion-O and it taught him another life lesson. Like I said, life is short and it's fragile. It's meant to be, it's precious, and it's you're not supposed to take it for granted. You're supposed to make the most of every opportunity you can. And also, with the theme tying into hope, pretty much what we saw at the end of the episode was Lion-O. He got the courage to go and confront the lizards, despite the fact that they were highly outnumbered, okay? So the ThunderCats, they go ahead, confront the lizards, and then, oh, who comes in at the end and saves the day? Panthro. Panthro finally showed up, and I'll be honest with you guys, I thought we weren't going to see Panthro until at least episode 6 or 7. Like the second half of the season. But no, he showed up at the end of episode 3. Episode 4 actually. Because the premiere was 2 episodes. So yeah, he showed up at the end of episode 4. So next week we're gonna Panthro joins the crew. But I will say that while this episode was, like I said, once again another quote-unquote filler episode, the thing that these side stories, the thing that they're doing, which I hope this is what the writers had in mind, not only are they teaching Lion-O a lesson in every episode, but this is what I'm hoping the writers are doing. I'm hoping that the idea behind these side stories so early on in the series is that it's not just that Lion-O is learning lessons from these different creatures and these different races and different species on their planet. Just keep up with me, okay? Take this into consideration. Lion-O is traveling the world, traveling their planet, meeting these different creatures in these different areas and learning these life lessons. But he's also making friends. He's building alliances. It is as if the planet itself is teaching him. I mean, think about it. It's no different than if any of you all were to leave your home and journey around whatever country you're in, Like, let's just say I was to leave Louisiana and I decided to go to fucking Wisconsin. Who knows who I could meet in Wisconsin? Who knows what I could learn in Wisconsin? But what I'm saying is, I think it's creating this kind of worldwide consensus that Lion-O is not only the leader of the ThunderCats, but that he is becoming a king, because he's learning how to interact with other people, with other cultures. He's learning about the world that he occupies, and it's going to help him. You see what I'm saying? By the time we see Lion-O return to Thundara as the king with the Book of Omens, he's going to be a well-traveled person. He's going to be much wiser than when he left. And I think that's what the writers are trying to get across. So that's why I'm really not like knocking this episode. I will admit, last week's episode left a lot more, to be wanted. It was somewhat of a letdown. This episode, though, I think made up for it, because I see what they're doing now. But with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this review. Except I got a few more little references that I kind of picked up on in the episode. I wonder if you guys picked up on this, but when we first saw the Petalars, the way they were all holding hands and singing and rocking back and forth, did that not remind you of the Who's down in Whoville in the Grinch Stole Christmas? I'm sorry, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's the Who's. And then the Cliff of Winds was actually a vine that was spiraled and it uncurled, and they were able to walk up it. Did that not remind you of the mountain in Nightmare Before Christmas? When I saw that, I was like, oh shit, it's like the mountain in Nightmare Before Christmas. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna wrap up this review. With that said, Guys, thanks for joining me again. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. As always, comment, rate, subscribe. Don't forget to hit me up on Facebook. You know, facebook.com/otakuassemble, twitter.com/otakuassemble, blogtv.com/otakuassemble, and I'm also on Skype, otaku_assemble. Be sure to hit me up. Stay tuned because later this weekend I got favorite hero, favorite villains for the X-Men series. The X-Men series pulled out an upset this week. So I got favorite hero, favorite villains for that, and I also got, guys, my anime favorite for August is going to be none other than Yu Yu Hakusho. So please tune in for that. And with that said, this is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off, and I will catch you all later. Peace.